Alright, good afternoon everyone. Welcome to today's Sec 4 math lesson with me, teacher Jason over here. Alright, so as usual, we're going through some mock papers and yes, let's get on to the lesson today, shall we? Alright, so let's get on to this lesson started as such. And we're up here. Alright, so yes, hello everyone. Just getting started over here with my lesson over here, Sec 4, sorry, what am I saying Sec 2? Sec 4 E-Math lesson with me, teacher Jason. Alright, just some general rules. Alright, just be patient and understanding, observe gracious and respectful behavior even in the digital space. So as you're typing, just make sure that you know what you're typing. And lastly, ask good and relevant questions for today's lesson in particular. Alright, so just make sure it is relevant to today's lesson. Alright, now what are we going to focus for today? Before that, okay, there is going to be a live study Q&A coming soon. Alright, so there's 5 days left. Mark the dates over here, 17th of August. Alright, mark the date. Alright, okay, there will be good, very nice teachers over there guiding you in any questions in particular, regardless of the questions that they have chosen, or actually regardless of whether you have any other queries on your side. So just mark the date, 17th August. Okay, so what are we actually going through today? Alright, so today again, okay, it's actually a continuation of the mock exam set A paper 1. So I hope you guys have actually have some time to actually try the paper if you don't have to, or as well as if you need to actually have some time extension, please do let me know as well so that I can give you the relevant time extension for certain questions as such. Okay, so it's just a continuation from previous lesson and continuation from previous lessons. Yes, okay, so for this lesson I will actually not be going through 13 and 14, alright, because it's the second part of the paper. But if you do actually need me to go through 13 and 14, I will actually spend some time for me to go through 13 and 14 respectively after this lesson. Alright, so if you can just stay back for a while, I'll go through it accordingly. Alright, Isabel? Hey, any other queries before I start for today's lesson? Okay, as noted, we will actually just go through specific questions, alright, for today's paper. Okay, we'll just go through specific questions. So if you realize if I don't go through any other questions, it's because we have actually picked and curated certain questions that may seem to be of special consideration. But however, if you really want me to go through any certain questions, feel free to let me know. I will see whether I can squeeze in some time. Okay, now let's get on to our first question to go through for today. So if you actually look for question 15, alright, it is actually a proving style question and how do we actually goes by. So whenever we go to such questions, right, always try to see what the question has given you. In this case, what is given in this question, we know AC is equals to BC, okay, as indicated by the lines over here, and as well as BA bisects angle TAC. So we do know actually these two angles are equal. Okay, but how do we represent them? That is one thing. These two angles are equal. And show with justification that TA is parallel to BAC. So let's backtrack a little bit. How do we actually do this? Okay, TA parallel to BAC, you realize what we can do based on these properties over here. If I want to prove TA parallel to BC, sorry, not BAC, BC, I can actually show by alternate angles based on my diagram that these two angles are equal. And also because AC is equals to BC, these angles are equal as well. So on the diagram, it seems like the question is already solved. But how do I write it out? So that's where, or when you do your geometrical proofs, when you write out your reasoning, you have to be very, very clear. In this case, my first step comes into play. In my triangle ACB, I have to specify every step over here. In this case, BAC is equals to ABC. That's the first step to get me to know that these two angles are equal. So now I have the point. Then, how can I show that this angle is equals to this angle without making use of the parallel notion? Because it's not parallel yet. I've not proven it. But that's where you have to see all the information. It is given that BA bisects TAC. So that means these two angles are equal, and henceforth that's where my second reasoning comes into play. So that's why I have BAC is equals to BAT over here. And therefore then I backtrack. Okay, alternate angles tell me what? My angle BAT is equals to CBA, and you use the converse. So this is actually a very common proving style question, even in Sec 1 as well, because you know alternate angles, maybe not base angle. Yes, in Sec 1 as well, because Sec 1 you have learned your triangles, quadrilateral, and polygons as well. So they can combine this with basic geometry, and by the converse of alternate angles, since we know these two are equal, that's why I can say, because alternate angles, in order for it to be proven, my two lines has to be parallel. So this is one way where we have to take note when the lines are parallel, because of alternate angles. So we have to be clear with our understanding over here. Okay, so this is for question 15, and you realize why we need so much reasoning? It's 4 marks over here. So where do my 4 marks come in? This is my first mark, this is my second mark. Therefore, my two angles are equal, and henceforth, what is the reasoning? Alternate angle. So that's where the marks are coming into play. Okay, now with question 16. Okay, this is going to be the same format, only 30 seconds long, but I'm going to initiate a feedback for you, alright? So when I initiate a feedback, do me a favor, click on the green button if you actually need more time. Red button means you don't need more time, alright? I will initiate my feedback right now. Okay, green button if you need more feedback, yeah? If you need more time. Red button means you are okay. Oh, okay. Oh, so most of you actually attempted the paper. Okay, that's okay. All right. But then again, for the benefit of everyone, I will actually give maybe a 30-second extension. So you all can actually, for those who have not attempted before, you all can start on this question now. I will launch my bubble launcher in about 2:07. All right, 2:07. Anyway, Isabel, for your question 13 and 14, if you actually need me to go through, right, just stay a little bit after the session. I'll go through question and 13 and 14 respectively for you. Okay? So just to give you a heads up. And for the rest, okay? Need 14. Okay. 13. Okay, no problem. So after the lesson, okay, I will go through 13 with you. Yes, I'll go through 13 with you. Okay? So just stay a little bit moment. I'll go through 13 with you. Okay? Okay, so I'll give about 15 more seconds before I start the bubble launcher, alright? Take note, you only have 30 seconds for this question as the format goes by. Okay? 4 marks for this question. So based on this thinking process, how do you get the 4 marks? Launching in 1 second. Let's go. Okay, let's see your responses, guys. Right, that's good. Wow, okay, seems like most of you all are doing it good. Okay, 20 more seconds. Last 5. Okay, most of you are got it down. That's good. But for the rest, based on the options, I believe you cannot just guess based on the value that's given. You have to give from the you have to give your geometrical reasoning from there. All right. So how do I start? Okay, these are all given in the question, whereby a few other things you can input is finding angle OCD. So you need to find this. So what are you given here? Okay, so what we are given over here is actually ABC. Now, what is one rule we can use over here? Can anybody tell me? For those who have gotten this correct, what is one rule we can use to get it started? Since we have ABC equals to 128 degrees. Okay. If I have 128 degrees, what can I say further? All right, very good, Denise. That's essentially what we can do, because this is my center. This is at the circumference. So what we can say, we can find this angle first and see how it leads by. So therefore, I can say reflex AOC. And again, when we find a value due to a property that we can use that is not very clear, we actually have to write it up. 256. Okay, this is because angle at my center. is 2 times angle at my circumference. Okay, as I write my working, I hope you all can identify where my marks are coming from. Therefore, since we know what is 256, again, what can we do next? Okay, next one, what happens? Does anybody wants to try? 256, for those who have gotten my answer, what is our next step? Since we have gotten 256 over here. Okay, so it's angle at the point, so therefore, very good, Denise. Angles at the point, therefore, we can actually find AOC. AOC in this case, 360 degrees minus 256 degrees. This is equals to 104. So as we write each step, especially for question with diagrams, it's good to actually annotate them. Important, alright, angles at a point. So as we find each value, it will be good to write it down. Okay, write it down. So therefore, in this case, 104. So angles at a point. Then after that, what happens? Okay, OA. So you realize, oh, we are stuck. What can we do? Further up next, you realize based on this, there are two ways we can do this actually. One way is because we know OA is the radius, OC is the radius, because they come from the center to the circumference. Okay, we can actually do one way as well. I recommend the way given for us. We can do find OAC first. 180 minus 104. Divide by 2. That's gonna give me 38 degrees. Okay, why is this so? Okay, by right, you should write it here, but because of space constraint, actually, can I fit it here? Okay, let me fit it here. So I have base angle of an isosceles triangle. So therefore, I find OAC. And this might not be very straightforward, but you can do this as well. You can do OCD is equals to 104 plus 38 is equals to, in this case, 142. This is because it is external angle of triangle. And I believe, you know, based on my working over here, that's how I get 1. And that's how I get my 4 marks, because 1 mark here, 1 mark here, and so on and so forth. 1 mark here as well. So can I write it? Yes. 1 mark here, and lastly, 1 mark here. Now, besides following this way, is there another way? Okay, the first two steps are standard because you're only given here. But for the next 2 steps, okay, is there another way besides using external angles of a triangle? Does anybody wants to try? Is there another way besides external angle of a triangle? Okay, think about it, okay? As long as we get the answer and it seems logical and it fulfills the mark scheme over here, it will be correct. Very good, Jun Wong. That's actually correct. Anybody else wants to try? That's actually correct. Okay? Anybody else? I'll give you all 5 more seconds before I move on. Yeah, I think you guys got it. Just a little shy to type it out. So what happens? We have angle on a straight line. Instead of finding this angle, OAC, I can find OCA, which is 38 as well. And then henceforth, if you take 180 minus 38, you still get 142 angles on a straight line. Yeah, of course, yes, definitely, Denise. Yes, you can say exterior angle of triangle because that is the property. External angle triangle, both of them are the same logical way of explaining this property. So yes, Denise, you can say. That's why I've written here as well. Exterior angle of triangle. This is exterior. And in fact, for your polygons, when we say angles outside the polygon, is exterior as well. Exterior or external? Oh, okay. In a proper way, we say exterior because for polygons as well, to standardize. Interior angle, we mean inside. So exterior means outside. So we follow that particular mathematical jargon over there. Both may seem the same in the English terms, but for math specifically, we say interior or exterior. So long story short, try not to say external. Yeah. Okay, so that's for question 16. Hopefully you guys know where you get your 4 marks and the pointers over there. Okay. Now, moving on to my next question over here. our matrix question in this case, it can be a little bit tricky in terms of forming my matrix, and especially for real world context. Okay, so what are the things you need to take note of? Okay, so certain key informations where the question gives you. So suppose when it give key information like this, usually, and with matrix question, usually it comes into play. Especially even better now, they give you this matrix over here. Okay, from the information whereby this is given here to the arrangement, and following up over here as well, you will already know there is some form of matrix multiplication coming. Usually when matrices comes into play, there will be some form of matrix multiplication coming next. So when you form your matrix, in this case represent the prices in cents of a 3x2 matrix, take note, this is the number of rows, this is the number in columns. Henceforth, when you form your matrix, make sure it aligns to the dimensions as well, and it makes sense based on the information over here. Which in this case, this, if you were to copy and paste, which is unlikely for a particular question, because copy and paste, who can't really do it, okay, they will want you to think how we can phrase this out. So therefore, you realize if you were to copy and paste, this is 2x3. But how do we make it 3x2 and make sure it makes sense? So that's why you realize the row here retains the same information. So if you realize how we're to do it, if I switch the row to a column, and in this case, this is store P now, and therefore this will be store Q. All the information will be stored in the correct manner and retained as the same as the one above at the table over there, the blue color table over there, over here. So just make sure as you form your matrix, the information stored makes sense as to the question. So let me just write it out. It is going to be pen A. Yes, correct. It's going to be, in this case, eraser, pencil, and ruler. Okay, representation, first step. Easiest, they will ask you to copy and paste based on the dimension, but sometimes they will not. So make sure as you write your matrix, it makes sense with the information. Very important. Okay, that's one thing to take note besides just filling in the matrix. Okay, next up, now that's where you realize, oh, that's where my matrix multiplication comes into play. So this is your matrix C, matrix B given. For those who have done the paper, they'll ask you to find BC. Take note of the marks over here. Okay, for matrix multiplication, there can be two scenarios. In this case, this is given as 2 marks. Now, what is the difference over here between a 1 mark and a 2 mark? Okay, for a 2 mark question over here, they want to see two things. One, of course, is the answer. The other one is actually seeing the process of multiplication. So you actually have to write this step out. Okay, because they actually, 1 mark is to actually see the process of you multiplying. In this case, one example, row and column to give you this entry over here. This process over here is to show 1 mark. And henceforth, doing them for each of the entries over here. That is where you get this matrix over here, to give you your answer for the matrix. Okay, so take note of the mark scheme. If it's 2 marks, you need to show this and this. But if it's only 1 mark, then I don't need to show this. This is enough. Okay, but then again, going back to this question, we need the full working as such. Okay, so I hope this is a bit clear. Matrix multiplication. Okay, so just a recap on how you get this entry. 80k is achieved by k and 80 to give me this. K plus 5, 120 to give me this. And lastly, 12 and 55 to give me this. And you repeat the same for the other rows. Okay, so by now it should be quite firm on that. And finally, okay, so for this one, for the benefit of doubt for those who have not done, I will write the matrix over here. So for the matrix T over here, it's going to be 200k plus 1260, and then 4,200, and also as well. As I'm writing down the matrix, you all can start to figure out what the matrix mean over here. And in this case, for the benefit that for those who did not do, I will actually write more information in this case. Because once I multiply, this is actually store P, store Q, and in this case, my whole row over here, this row actually shows for Mr. Lim. I hope I'm not blocking the, okay, this is good. Okay, I'm blocking a little bit. Okay, let me just erase. Hey, you all can start actually think about it first. I'll launch the bubble launcher once I have finished writing out. Okay, and also this is for, this row is for, in this case, Mr. Okay, I'm gonna launch the bubble launcher right. Okay. By right, in exams, I won't do this to you, but I will tell you how I get all this, okay? I will launch it now. Okay, that is good. Take note, I wonder, look at the question. First column, I wonder. First column, I wonder. First column. Okay, let me see the response. Okay, some of you get confused between 2 and 3 million. Okay, so that's a good start because the options are there. But take note, column, first column, what does it mean? First column means I'm looking for store P. Okay, store P only, but information for both Mr. Lim and Miss Tan. So therefore, which one actually represents the best? In this case, look at the information. If I look at number 1, it's store Q. So definitely first one, store Q. It's not store Q. So first one out. Second one, store P. Mr. Lim, Mrs. Tan. Miss Tan. Seems the most accurate, but let's view the other options first. Third one, Mr. Lim from store P and store Q. Now, that's where you realize Mr. Lim from store P and store Q. I'm reading for the first row. So it's actually not correct, and subsequently Miss Tan also not, so therefore option number 2. So look at how I actually phrase the options, and that is how you are actually supposed to reason it out as we were to write it out for each of the options over here, as how we write our mathematical reasoning. Okay, so that's why in this case, this is the answer. This is how I write it out. But now, how you may wonder, how do I actually get my store P and store Q, Mr. Lim and Mr. Tan? That is where to understand and backtrack how our matrix multiplication works. If you read from above, okay, Mr. Lim needs K pencils, K plus 5, K erasers, K plus 5 pencils, and 12 rulers. So if you realize this row over here is for Mr. Lim. And the other row over here is for, therefore, Miss Tan. And my columns over here are respectively for, in this case, erasers, pencils, and rulers. Now let's look at how I write it for C. C in this case, if you look column down, is actually in this case on my side, store P, store Q, and in this case, erasers, pencil, ruler. So as I multiply each option, first row, first column, that's how I get Mr. Lim with store P. Following the other way, Mr. Lim with store Q. So the other one, Miss Tan, store P, Miss Tan with store Q. Following up from the rest, that's how you realize I got these entries over here. So moral of the story is, when you multiply out, try to see what each row and each column represent when it comes to real context for multiplying matrices. Okay, if it's unclear at the end Q&A, feel free to ask me again. Alright, now with this, there is one more question for this matrix question, very interesting one that I feel that it's good to go through. Okay, so again, for those who have gotten the answer, give me a moment. But for the rest who did not, I will need the matrix from the previous one and see how we actually solve this. Okay, so I'll just actually write it out first. 200k plus 1260 420. Okay, this is how we solve if we actually get the information from the matrix. We'll still need the previous matrix to help us solve. Okay, so P, Q, okay, so I'll write it out. Mr. Lim, Miss Tan. So, look at this information over there and solve for your K. Alright? I'll give you 10 more seconds before I launch this out, alright? To see how you guys respond to this. Okay, last 2 seconds before I launch it, and let's go. Okay, that's good. Be careful of your manipulation, guys. Hey, most of you all seems to get it down here good. Very nice, very good. Okay, last one. Alright. Okay, that's good. Seems like most of you all get it down. Okay, so let's view this question accordingly. Look at what this question means and how we interpret it. Okay, Mr. Lim spends 90 cents less if he purchased the items from store P as from store Q. So that means store P value is lesser. Store Q value is more. So therefore, if I actually take 205k plus 1300, subtracting the whole of P. Okay, all of them are in cents, so therefore please write 90 cents and not 0.9. Okay, and therefore it's manipulation. So therefore I have 5k plus 40 is equals to 90. 5k is equals to 50. Therefore, this gives me k is equals to 10. So a lot of it, you realize for matrix question, the tricky part is not arranging, because you may arrange it by sort of chance. It's not multiplying. It is how we interpret the information from how we form the matrix. What is the information form when we form the matrix? And when we multiply, what is the new information that we get? And that's where part C and part D will be the hardest. Okay, so that's the hard part over here. Okay, so if you need more, if you need to ask, please type it out and ask. Otherwise, I won't know where you guys went wrong. But otherwise, if there's any good, if there are no queries over here, I'll assume that the progress is good over here, because we got quite some questions to catch and quite some interesting questions as well. In fact, yes, after this, the next after the one of the I forgot which question, but one of the questions is actually quite interesting over here. Okay, so next one, not this one, but let's see how you guys fare. Okay, this is actually very, very, very important for your fundamentals over here. Okay, for those with A math, you might find this easier, but for those with E math, this is actually a particular formula that you need to know. Okay, launching the bubble launcher in 30 seconds time. I'll give you all some time to actually read this through, to do this for those who did not do it. Okay, I'll give you all 30 seconds extra time before I launch the bubble launcher. All right. Okay, launching in 3 seconds, 2, 1, let's go. Alright, for those who have actually done it and just clicking the options, I hope you enjoyed your National Day today, alright, and as well as enjoying the week, okay, because this week and especially today, it's very special for me, alright, so I hope you do enjoy it as well. And yes, the options coming in are very, very good. Good to see such options over here. Okay, last 5 seconds for those who have yet to try. Take note of your errors. Last one. Okay, most of you get it down. That's good. But let's see how we do this over here. So, sine theta is 3 over 5. I hope by now you guys know your tuakaso. So in this case, 3, 5 should be here. And you can solve for this side by your Pythagoras theorem. So in this case, backtrack of your working over here by Pythagoras theorem. Okay, in fact, you do not need to do this because this is only 2 marks, but it is good to actually backtrack your working, which in this case, suppose I call this b. B over here is square root of 5 square minus 3 square, which is 4. Do not write minus 4 because it is a length. Okay, now what happens? The actual mark comes in when you tell me, oh, I want to find cosine of theta first. Cosine of theta in this case 4 over 5. Now this is my first mark over here to identify. Okay, why is this 1 mark important? Because if you cannot identify your cosine theta correctly, your 180 minus theta, which is equals to negative, take note, it's negative over here of cosine theta, which gives me 4 over 5. That's where you get your second answer over here. Okay, now for those who cannot remember, okay, try to get it by notion. But for those with A math background, you might find this easier to remember, okay, of your 4 quadrants. For those without A math, don't worry about it. Just take note. 180 minus theta, if it's cosine, there'll be a negative. If it's a sine, it will be positive. Okay, so just take note of 1 pointer from here. That's why it's 2 marks. Okay, did I go through the marks for the previous one? 2 marks over here because to form. Let me just go through the marks as well. Sorry for that. This is 1 mark to form the equation. 1 mark for the answer. Previous one, 1 mark just because of the statement. Okay, then the rest as well. Yes, I have gone through the marks. So just take note of the marks as you are doing the question. When the question asks you for a certain amount of marks, 1 mark means they just want the answer. More than 1 mark means there is a particular working they must see, essential one, before you get to the answer. Okay, now the next question is a very interesting one. Okay, I would say it looks deceptively easy, but I want to see how you guys fare and based on your options over here. Okay, for this one, for the rest, I'll give you all 1 minute, extra minute to think about it and key your options before I have you all to key in the options in the interface on your side. Okay, for the rest, just bear with it and try to see whether your thought process is correct or not. Read the question carefully again, okay, with respect to what you have written. I'll launch the bubble launcher at 2:33. Okay, launching it in 15 seconds, so just bear with me for a moment. Launching in 2 seconds. Let's go. Alright, that's good. For the rest, they have yet to key in. Lost 5 seconds. Okay, alright, most of you got it on. That's actually a very good note. Alright, in fact, I feel that this question requires quite a bit of thinking process over here. Why so? Okay, you realize this question it's a little bit special in the way whereby first thing first, they gave you an interval to work with. Now, what is this interval? Why is it important? Okay, because based on this diagram, they tell you, let's say you are B. Okay, B is this point, suppose you're standing here 43 cm and sort of saying that this position is briefly 2 meters above. But this is not 2 meters. I mean, this is not 2 meters because this length can vary. So based on your understanding, how can we achieve the greatest angle of depression? Now, think about it this way. The angles of depression of B from T, that means how much this angle over here is gonna be the greatest. Based on this, it may not be that intuitive to see from here. So suppose we know if we draw a line like this, we know this angle is just this angle over here, right? Okay, so it would be more ideal in this case, based as a person, if we were to look up. If we were to look up. And based on this, can anybody tell me to look up and have the greatest angle for this? Should the length over here be based on these options over here? 1, the shortest, 2, the longest, 3, the middle point, or 4, I don't need to consider the range at all. Okay, so key in your options again. 1 is the shortest, 2 is the longest, 3 the middle point, 4 I don't need to consider the x value at all. I'll give you all some time to think about it. Key in your numbers. For those who have the correct options already, I believe you know what's the number. Give you all some time to key in the number that I've just said. Okay, so 3 is what? 3 is the midpoint. Okay, Denise mentioned the midpoint. Anybody else wants to try? Okay, let me just write it out for the rest to see. Okay, so I can consider this if, okay, for those who are unclear, let me just write it out. 1, shortest rope. 2 is the longest rope. 3 is the midpoint of the rope. And in this case, 4 is don't need to consider. Okay, so I only have an answer and it's the midpoint, but my answer here is midpoint is just enough for me to raise my head further. In this case, the angle of elevation from T from B. But in order to rise it higher, you realize if this rope is super long, let's say it's here, I don't need to raise my head so high. Make sense? If my rope is all the way here, I will just need to raise my head a little bit. But if my rope is very, very short, in this case up to 50 cm, I need to raise my head higher, right? As I'm doing now. So therefore, in this case, the rope has to be the shortest. That's one thing to take note. And therefore, greatest angle of elevation, x is 50 cm. So how do we first even create our working once we understand this? Firstly, one mark comes into play if you mention your angle of depression based on how they create the mark scheme. In this case, let's call it theta. This is equals to, in this case, TB, and next case, let's call this point here Y. Okay, again, state your reasoning because this is alternate angles. Okay, as long as you write your working down, because they can see how we write down xt parallel to by. Okay, why can we say x and y even though it's not given in the question? Because you've written down in your paper. So that's why in this case, it is okay. Next up, what happens? TBY. Once we have that, you realize the whole rope is 2 meters, but units is in cm. So you have to take note, this is actually tangent inverse cos opposite over adjacent, opposite over adjacent. So that is why in this case, it is going to be 200 minus 50 divided by 43. Okay, so this is a very interesting question because you will need to consider the length for which I need to subtract to get me the greatest angle of elevation, which in this case, calculator, play safe, write 527 SF of values, 416, round it up to 740 over here. In this case, take note, this is angles. Angles, always remember, if they never tell you how many, that's significant how many numbers to round up to, always 1 dp for angles in degrees specifically. So that's why answer is number 4. Okay, a bit lengthy in explanation over here, but I hope you guys get this down. Okay, so this is the most interesting one. I hope you all guys get this down because next one I want to go through a rather straightforward indices question. Give you an extra 1 minute to actually solve it before I give you all the answer. Okay, for the rest you all have. Thank you for the understanding. Just bear with me for a little moment. For the rest, we've yet to try. Alright? I'll just give about 1 minute extra time. So one thing for such equation is, the good note is to first copy and paste the equation from the question and we try to solve it from there. Alright, launching it in 5 more seconds. Okay, let's go. Let's see what are your options. Okay, this is good. Perfect over there. Okay, seems like this question has not much issue at all. That's good, that's good. Last 3. Okay, very good, perfect over there. Okay, good job. All right, so seems like most of you got it down. Just a little bit of an error for some who answered other options based on your indices rule. So what happens? We know in this case, for such indices question, we must convert it to the common base first. In this case, it will be 3. 3 to x, 3x, and the other side is 3 to the power of 5 and 5. But take note, all right, how do we solve from there? 2x and x, when we multiply over here, our powers add up. Okay, so that is for those who answered option number 2, add up. So 2x plus x, 3x over here. And the other one, where we have a power and another power up here. So it's just power with power. There's no additional base over here. Okay, that one is where we multiply. Since the base are the same and they are equal, that's why we have this, and all we have to do, it all boils down to this particular linear equation over here, which we'll touch on in sec 1. So that's why number 1 is the answer. Okay, so just be familiar with your indices rule for this particular question. Alright, okay, so I hope everything is going well, going good. Based on response, it looks good as well. Okay, let's go on to the next question, which is our standard deviation question. Now, how do we actually calculate this? Look at the marks over there. Usually for such questions, when it actually asks you to calculate an estimate for the mean height of plants, right? You don't need to show the working at all. You actually just need to calculate, in this case, the value for x bar. All right, so for x bar. So what you essentially need to do, right? Okay, for such questions, you will just need to key this into your calculator. Okay, and in fact, you don't have to show your examiner this at all. This is just for you to take note. Okay, when you key in your calculator, first things first, ensure that it is in statistic mode, stats mode. And when you key in, make sure you're calculating this particular notation down here. With one thing you need to take note, the midpoints. We are calculating with the midpoints over here. Once we have that, when you calculate x bar, calculator will immediately tell you x bar in this case is going to be 24.625. All right, 1 mark, this one over here. That is it. Okay, I think I forgot to mention the marks for the previous one as well. Yes, over here, sorry, question 21. First mark is over here. Second mark is to do the tangent inverse. And last mark for the answer. Okay, this one over here, 1 mark for the answer. Sorry for jumping around, apologies for that. 1 mark for the equation to get used to the rule. Okay, now back to this question over here. This one, the only thing you have to show is this particular x bar over here. But be very careful when you key in. Don't key in the endpoint at the left. Don't key in the endpoint on the right. We key in the midpoint. I repeat again, midpoint. Okay, so midpoint over here. So with this, okay, if you know this particular notion over here, next one over here, all right, we will actually go through standard deviation as well. Just that, take note, we are calculating for, key thing over here, sigma, we call it sigma x, not sx. This one over here is not in your syllabus. I repeat, this one over here is not in your syllabus. Okay, what is it? Good thing is you don't have to know. Okay, we focus on this for your upcoming O-level exams to come. Just this one. The rest of it, no need to care. Just this one. Main important thing again, make sure you are doing the midpoint and ensure your calculator is in statistics mode. Okay, ensure it is in stats mode over here. Okay, key thing over here. And therefore, when you calculate, okay, your answer you should get, in this case, if you're wondering what the answer is going to be, in this case, 5.80. Sometimes, if you calculate as x, you may get the same answer, but that is just a coincidence. Depending on how many samples you have, they will be distinctively different. Okay, so always remember, find, in this case, sigma x. Very important. Okay, what is sigma over here? Sigma in this case is just this particular alphabet over here. So this one. Okay, this one. If you keep saying, oh, what is sigma? Sigma x is just the one highlighted in blue. Okay. Now, when I calculate in this case the mean and standard deviation, what are they needed for? In this case, for such questions over here, 2 marks. Okay. Why is it 2 marks? Again, I will write down in this case the details for the first section because that is what we calculate. Okay, second section I will not write down because it's given there. You will need for the first section. For the benefit of those who did not do, for those who did, thank you for the time again. Just bear with me for a moment and to make sure everyone goes through at a good pace, all right? Okay. As such, so this is the first section. I'll give you all 30 seconds to read this through with the information from the second section over here. And I will launch the bubble launcher in 30 seconds. All right, so just bear with me for it. All right, launching it in 5 more seconds. I'm not blocking the options, right? In 4, 3, 2, 1. Let's go, let's go, let's go. All right, that's good. Most of you all got it down. Very nice, very nice. Okay, take note of the errors of the, take note of the wordings over here and identify which are the same and different. Okay. Anyway, all the options, the phrasing are correct. It's just the logic and the findings might mislead the structure of the argument. Last 1 second. All right, most of you all got it down, but let's see. Okay, most of you all got it down, but let's identify why some of you are actually going the other side. So take note, we are comparing the second section with the first. So if highlighting still is not convenient for you to compare, it is always good to write it out. Second section, X bar, 21 cm, sigma, in this case, 6.2. So first things first, comparing second section to the first. Based on this information, second section to the first, if I compare the mean, what am I comparing over here? Can anybody tell me? All right, I'll give you some time to type. If I am comparing the height of the mean height over here, this one should be straightforward, but I'll give you some time to think about it. What am I comparing down here? Give you some time to type the response. Very good, Denise. Anybody else wants to try? What am I comparing down here? Okay, so in this case, for the mean, what am I comparing? All right, very good down there. Okay, I think I got a general response. I'm comparing the general height of plants. Okay, the general height of plants. But now, second part over here. If I am comparing, in this case, my sigma, what am I comparing? This one is a little bit confusing for the rest. That's why I want to go through. What am I comparing down here? Okay, for standard deviation. Hey, this is a very key information. We actually do have one specific lesson for it. So for those who need to be more clear, you can refer to the lesson for that. But in general, I'll give you 5 more seconds or 10 more seconds to think about it. Standard deviation in this case, all right. Okay, seems like everyone is a little unclear. Standard deviation over here actually calculates what we call the consistency of the data. So what does it mean? Okay, first one mean over here, we know it is going to be second section shorter. All right, second section shorter. So this will be okay. So generally shorter, so that's why we know 1 and 2 are not correct. But for standard deviation, if my standard deviation over here is greater, what does it mean? Think about it this way. The greater you, suppose let's say I am the center. If you are deviating away from me greater, okay, that means you're further away from me, right? Am I going to be, is it going to be more convenient for me to get to you? Okay, so you can refer to this as like a data set. If this is my mean, suppose this is my mean, and my mean is very, very far away. Is it gonna be very consistent? You see, so far away until it's hidden by the Gini class sign. Is it easy to ensure that my data is consistent? It's within the width of the mean. It is not, because it's too far away. I'm not able to ensure the consistency. So in this case, the lower the standard deviation, the more consistent it is supposed to the mean over here. So in this case, that's why this one over here is less consistent, because it is further away from the mean. It is deviating away from how the data should behave, henceforth less consistent, therefore number 3. Alright, so for those who got this wrong, I hope you get this down over here. But based on the response, I think I can have a relief on that, because I think 90% of you got this down. That's a good note. But for those who did not, if you need any help, at the end, again, there's a Q&A. Okay, now, following up, let's just finish up the rest of the questions that I have for you. Next one. Okay, why is this 2 marks again? 1, to compare the mean. Okay, why is this 2 marks? 1, to compare the mean. 1, to compare the standard deviation. That's why 2 marks. Okay, next one, to finish up the rest. Okay, how to, what are the rest over here? Sketching the graph. Why is it 2 marks? Okay, 1 for the asymptotes. Okay, 1 marks for both the x and y intercepts. How do you calculate? 3 things down here. First, identify my shape. It's less than 0, so that's why downward sloping, based on the curve down here. Intercepts over here, how do I find? X-intercept when y is 0. That's how I find these 2 things over here. Okay, you can solve it by your quadratic equations. Okay, that's how I get my x-intercept. Y-intercept when x equals to 0. That's how I get this point over here. Turning point, how do I find? If it's in a factor form, first thing to do, find the line of symmetry, basically the one that cuts in the middle. So that's why you take the average of the values down here. Then after that, you sub it into the equation that I have. And that's how I get my turning point. Shape, intercepts, turning point, use this SIT table, it will help you a lot. And you will sketch the quadratic curve in no time. Now, B part 2 is actually the interesting one. Why it does not have any solutions? This is actually, you realize, your solutions will come in anywhere. But you realize once it cuts off at the turning point, you will have only one. What happens if it cuts beyond your turning point? You're not going to have any solutions, right? So the 2 marks come into play to tell the person, firstly, the coordinates of the maximum point. It's going to be -1 and 16. More importantly, the value 16. And what does it tell you? The function at which, or in this case, this quadratic equation, the maximum value that it reaches is equals to 16. What happens if it's more than 16? That's where you have to emphasize when my K value is more than 16. Will the curve have any intersection points? Will it intersect? So that's where you have to explain over here. My quadratic equation equals to K. They will not have any intersection points, and that's where you have no solutions. So why is it 2 marks over here? Okay, because in this case, first mark comes in to say will not have any intersection points. Okay, maximum value, it's 1 over here, 1 mark. Not have any intersection points, it's another mark. To tell us, therefore, there's no solutions. So these are how we distribute the marks. Okay, following up nicely, and let me see. Okay, Denise has another way. Let me see. Okay, so you prefer. Okay, so Denise approaches by completing the square. More than r equals to. Okay, maximum point is good as well. Yeah, that is the ideal way. You use maximum point. This is the explanation over here. So this is the way. Let me just view at what Denise see as well. Okay, just give me a little moment. I'm okay. More than r. Yep, that is right. Yeah, that is essentially how we do it over here, Isabel. That is the explanation based on the factored form. But I recommend you all not to multiply in and complete the square again because it might make the mistakes. But if you were to do that, it's also fine. No worries, it's okay, Isabel. At least you're confirming your solution with me, so that's good. Just let me see. Okay, so Denise, over here, your R. What is your R over here? Are you talking about the discriminant? If I'm talking about discriminant, that's A math. I don't think they will. Is it A math? Yes, it's A math. I don't think you can use A math over here. Never mind, let's get back to your query over here. More than R. Okay, I will get back to it. What is your, oh, okay, it's more than 16. Okay, no worries, I understand. Oh, you use completing, okay, can, no problem. So if you complete the square and then you say it is more than, if the curve it's more than 16. Okay, never mind, I'll get back to your query later, sorry about that. Let me finish up for the rest, okay, 20A part 1. No worries, as long as you get back to that, okay? Now, median mass. No worries, Denise, it's okay. I want you all to ask so that we are on the same track. Don't worry about it, okay? Now, the next few questions, alright, quite easy to find. Median mass, total frequency, we are finding 50th percentile is the median, so we just trace it down. 22 point, you should get 2.97. Error over here, plus minus 0.01, so that's where you get it, okay? Median mass straightforward over here. Then after that, if we move on to IQR that is Q3 minus Q1. Q3 is the 75th percentile, which is the 75th percentile. So trace here, trace down, 3.16. Again, error over here. You can have plus minus 0.1. Okay. Similarly to your Q1 over here, from 30, trace up, trace down, 2.78. Again, plus minus 0.1. So therefore, when you subtract, allowance is a plus and minus 0.2. Okay, so based on these values over here, the value can deviate, okay, plus minus 0.01 because of how parallax error, but that's the allowance they can give. So if you subtract plus minus 0.02, so one thing to take note. Similar over here as well, okay, and over here as well. Okay, so just take note. Okay, and lastly, of course, once you have all these values over here, that's where you have your box plot. Box and whiskers plot, okay? Box and whiskers plot, main thing over here to take note. You will need the 5 values. And that's why they ask you calculate the median interquartile range to get your Q3 and Q1. Minimum value is just the lowest value here. Maximum value is just the highest value over here. And that's how you do your box plot. Okay, 5 values over here. These are the ones that you need to take note of. But rather, the most interesting question I want to go through is this. Okay, imagine this curve over here. I subtract 0.2 kg. How will it affect the curve? Think about it this way. I'm just subtracting my mass, each one over here, by 0.2. So how will it happen to the curve? All right, for time constraint, let me just view over here, because we are just subtracting the mass, we are not affecting how many people have the mass. So my new curve, only my values here will sort of get subtracted by 0.2. So what will happen in this case is that the new curve will actually have the same slope. So that means it will retain the same shape. So that's why we say the same slope. But what happens in this case, my curve, because it's 0.2 subtracted, will it go to the left or to the right? Does anybody wants to try? Will it go to the left or to the right? Okay, in this case, can I have an answer? Does anybody wants to try? Is it to the left or to the right? Every value is subtracted. So therefore, we are going to the left. Very good, Denise. It's essentially to the left because I am reducing the value. Okay, so take note in this case, if I have an error, it's just seeing whether my curve shifts to the left and right. And that's one way of how they can ask the how they can ask the questions for cumulative frequency curve. But with that, that's it for today. One tip for everyone over here in exam style. If you have intermediate answers, always leave it in 5 to 7 significant figures before rounding out to 3SF or 1 decimal place. This one for any general value, this one for your degrees in your angles. Okay, because if you need your intermediate solution, 5 to 7 significant figures, it's more accurate. That's enough for you to get to 3SF or 1DP. That is it for me today. Thank you everyone, okay, for this particular going through, and that's the whole thing for mock paper 1. If you need me to go through certain questions for mock paper 1, feel free to stay a little bit more, or if there are any other queries, feel free to stay a little bit more. Otherwise, it's Teacher Jason signing off, and I'll see you all same time, same day next week. Alright, thank you everyone. Enjoy your National Day week. Take care. Bye bye.